Welcome back to our final installment of R for this week. We're going back to our good old friend, the ggplot, and I'm going to show you just some extra things that you can do if you want to make these plots look really clean and tight. So I always need the Tidyverse library. That's where ggplot comes in, and then the knitter helps with the actual knitting that we do at the end. Today we're reading in data that is from the United States, so I'm just going to run this chunk of code. You can see the USA data. I've got each state, I've got the abbreviation, and then we have obesity percentages, percent of population fully vaccinated, the electoral color of the state, the region that they reside in, and then median home price. So we're going to actually use state and percent fully vaccinated and electoral color and region today. So that's 4 different variables we'll be using. When you do your application assignment, you will be using 4 variables too. You will just switch out the percent of fully vaccinated to either obesity percentages or the median home price. All right, so we've got that read in, and I know it's read in because it's over in my environment window. So now, excuse me. Now I'm going to go into starting to make my ggplot. So the first thing with the ggplot, you have to have your data named, and we have our data as USA. So if you were doing this for your final project, you would call for whatever data you had read in and was in your environment window. So it has to match what's in the environment window. And then in my aesthetic option, you'll see that I have the X variable being the state, and it's going to be reordered by that percent of the population fully vaccinated. So it's still state, it's just reordering the states by this variable. So that's how it's being done. I don't have to reorder, I could just have it be state, and then my Y variable is going to be the percent of the population fully vaccinated. And then I'm going to color the bars by electoral color. So remember, we've got Republican and Democrat over here, and it's going to change the color of the bars for those 2 things, and it's going to label the bars by the state name, okay? Now, I call this my base plot because essentially I'm just setting up the work that we're going to be doing. So I need my variables and I need my data. If I want to run that, actually, I did run that. It's not going to show anything. So when I do the plot base, you see down here, there's nothing in here. Because at this point, I haven't told R what plot type I want it to use. And so it's just showing me what I chose for the x-axis and what I chose for the y-axis, okay? So I called for it in line 24, but I don't really need to call for it. I just, because it doesn't produce anything, I just did that to show you what the result would be. So now I'm going to run this plot clean, and really it's just adding to that base plot, and it's going to clean up the lines. So here you see it's got a grid, and if I do the plot clean, and again, it's not going to print it because at this point I didn't call for it, but I'm going to now call for it in line 26, and see here that it just creates a different grid. So that's all those first 2 things did. Now I'm going to keep adding. Now remember that what you choose that's on the left side of that left-handed arrow, you get to choose what that's called. You could call it anything. I'm telling myself what I'm doing, so that's my base plot. I'm making a cleaner plot. Now I'm making a bar chart, and so I'm calling it plot base bars. So what you'll notice here, and in your application assignment, you're going to have to do this a little bit differently, but what you'll notice here is that I'm making the geom bar. I want it to fill by that electoral color. I already told that up here. I don't have to tell it what the X and Y is down here because I already did it in that base plot. So when you say stat identity, that means it's going to, for the percent population fully vaccinated, it's going to graph by this, the identity or the number that's in that column. And then right now, the color being black, that's going to be the outline, and I'm filling it manually, and I'm choosing kind of the traditional colors for Democrats and Republicans. So when I run this one now, you see the outline is black, that's what that black was, and then I told it to manually fill with these colors, but we're filling by electoral color, so that it's choosing royal blue and red because I told it to choose that, but then it's doing it for the 2 groups, and you can see Democrat is blue, and then the red is Republican. So at this point, it's ordered, remember, by state, because I told it to do that up here in this aesthetic, and so I am having on my X, this is my x-axis, it's the state, we know that, that's what we chose, but the reason that it's lined up like this is because I told it to reorder by the percent fully vaccinated. So it's going from the smallest to the largest. All right. Now, the reason that one printed was because I called for it, but you don't need to have that in there. I just like to check my work and make sure that the code I did in that particular line works, and it does. So I'm going to move on. I'm now going to work into what I call a working graph. And the reason that I'm calling it this is because I'll show you when I make it, it's real ugly. And so I call it a working graph because I wouldn't ever use it in the end. I just need it right now to do a flip for me. So here, my working graph, I've just flipped. That's what that coordinate flip means. I flipped it, and then I added text, and the text is going to be this label state. So the geom text will pull whatever you call for the label to be, and it puts it onto the bars. So you see that's what that worked on. It took the state, it's putting it on the bars. That's what the geom text is. And then the chord flip means that it took the X and Y variable and put them, opposite of one another. Now, I want to facet, and we did this earlier, but I'm going to facet by region. And the reason I'm adding this scales equals free Y is because, and actually, I'll just show you. I'll show you what that works, how that works. I'm pushing it down, and then I'm going to facet by region. And right now you see every one of those plots has every state. We don't want that. We only want the plot for the y-axis to have just the states that are in that region, which is what that free y is. Now, if you remember, our x is actually state, and so it's kind of weird, right? We chose free y, but then we did a coordinate flip, and so I need it to be scales free y because at this point, the y-axis is state. Does that make sense? So I chose y because right now states are in the y. Even though up here I had x as the state, I then flipped it. So you just got to keep that in mind, and you can do free y or free x to see which one is appropriate. Here it's going to be the free y because that got rid of the state line. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that because I don't want it to print in the long run, but it's working for me. Remember, that's why I do it. I print the line of code that I just did so I can make sure it's working correctly. Now, I actually don't have to do that. I have that in there twice. That scale, fill, manual, I don't need that. Why did I do that? Past Becky does not remember what future Becky wanted. That is redundant, so I don't actually need that third variable plus the scale color manual because I have that up here. That's what that is doing. That's the fill, and you see I have it twice, so I didn't really need that. However, right now I need to have that plot final done because that's what I'm calling for down here. So I'm just going to leave that because it didn't change anything negatively, and I want to build off of that plot final, and so I'll just leave it. It's not a big deal to have that in there, but cleaner Becky would have not had that twice. All right, now I'm going to do the final plot better. Now, there's a couple things you might notice. One, there's no labels, and the X and Y axis labels are stupid. And so I'm fixing that. I have a title, I have a subtitle, I have a label for the Y, a label for the X, and then really always your caption should be where your data is from. And then you'll notice I have an axis, text, Y, element blank, axis, text, element blank. I don't want this stuff. I don't need that. I already have it on the bars. So I want to get rid of that, and that's what those lines of code are going to do. So I'll show you the difference there. When I run this, now you can see that I no longer have those ticks because I don't need it. And then I've got the labels to put on there. So pretty nice, huh? Looks good. You can see it's South Central. That's a predominantly Republican. Most of the regions are predominantly one electoral group or another. Also interesting to see at this point, this is a little old, but that the Democrat population vaccination rate tends to be higher, except for here in North Central. Always interesting. So that's how you do it. You'll do something similar on the application assignment, but I don't have it all written like this. I'm asking you to actively choose what code would be appropriate for what you want to do. And you will do it for either obesity rates or median home prices, which as of 2021, those are probably going to be a lot different because a lot has changed. But anyway, happy coding. Let me know if you have any questions.